Om Sai Ram. Hello, it's Thursday again and time to read another chapter from Sri Sai Charitra. Um, so, Om Sai Ram and to obeisance to my Guru, who is Sai, and hope I can go through this without any issues. So, uh, So the chapter 13, the heading of the chapter is The Cure of Bhimaji's Tuberculosis. My obeisance to Sri Ganesh, to Sri Saraswati and Sri Guru Maharaj. To the family deity, to Sri Ram, Sita Ramchandra, my most humble obeisance. I bow in reverence to the most venerable Guru, Sri Sainath. In expression, very brief and aphoristic, but in the gravity of the meaning, of their meaning, most profound, wide, and comprehensive in their application, and yet equally compressed. Such were Baba's words, which were very deep in significance and substance, and so perfectly well balanced and precious. They were never meaningless or in vain. Follow your goal, consistent with what has gone before and what is to follow. Act in compliance with what has been ordained. Forever be content and never leave place for worry or anxiety. Look, even though I have become a fakir, freeing myself from all care without encumbrances of a house, a family, and sitting in one place calm and still, abandoning all cares and vexations of life. Still, this irrestrainable Maya harasses me time and time again. I may well forget her, but she never forgets me, but clings fast to me all the time. She is Adi Maya of Sri Hari, who has distracted even Brahma and other gods. What is then is the case of weak fakir like me before her? When Hari himself is pleased, only then she will be destroyed. Without ceaseless Hari Bhajan, there is no release from this Maya. Such was the importance of Maya that Baba explained to his devotees. And to ward off her influence, he advised God's service through constant singing of his praises. Saints are my living image. So said Sri Krishna himself in the Bhagavad. Who does not know these words pronounced so clearly to Uddhav by Hari? Hence, listen with humility to the profound truth that Sai Samartha, the compassionate one, uttered for the welfare of his devotees. Only those virtuous souls whose sins have been obviated worship me and recognize my mark. If only you will utter Sai Sai all the time, I will with my grace present you even the seven seas, that is to protect you even beyond the seven seas. Trust these words of mine and you will achieve your welfare, most certainly. I do not need either of the elaborate articles of puja or 16 or even eightfold ceremonies or rites of puja. Where there is boundless fate, I abide there. So Baba had said time and time again, out of his love for his devotees, now we can find comfort only in remembering his affectionate words. And just see what a marvelous thing was done by this Sai, the compassionate friend, the protector of all who seek refuge, clearly opposing the cause of his devotees. Without allowing the mind to be diverted, with full concentration, listen to the whole of the story, and you will find fulfillment. Where the shower of nectarine words from Sai's mouth itself, the fountain of strength and satisfaction, who with their welfare in mind will tire of the effort to come to Shirdi? In the last chapter, the story of the Agnihotri Brahmin was narrated, where he was given darshan of his own guru, who had already taken samadhi, thereby bringing him great joy. Now, this chapter is even sweeter than the last. A devotee, enfeebled by tuberculosis, was restored to good health by breaking off his evil habit in a dream. O listen, O faithful ones, with full concentration to the marvelous life of Sainath, which destroys all sin. This life is purifying as sanctifying as the water of the Ganges, which helps attain liberation in this world as in the next. Blessed, blessed are the ears of those who listen to it. We may compare it with Amrit or the drink of the immortals, that is nectar from gods. But can it be sweeter than this? And if Amrit protects this life protects us from future births altogether. Living beings think they are all powerful, but he who thinks he can do what he pleases should listen to the story. If the living beings were truly free, why would sorrow and suffering alone be his lot? When he toils for happiness day and night, but such is the power of his faith. Though always quick to avoid suffering here and there everywhere, yet it follows him promptly. In trying to ward off, it embraces him more closely. In shaking it off, it clings faster than ever. In vain does a creature struggle. In vain is the arduous effort, day in and day out. Had the creature been really free, he would have sought nothing but happiness and would not have touched anything with even a suspicion of sorrow or suffering. Because of his free will, he would never have committed a sin. He would have accumulated merit in abundance to ensure greater happiness for himself. But the creature is not free. He is pursued by a chain of karma. Strange are the workings of this karma which pulls the strings in the life of a living being. With the result, though we may set our sights on virtue, we are completely drawn compellingly towards sin. While looking for good, virtuous deeds, the body always comes in contact with evil deeds. Now listen, my friends, to the story of Bhimaji Patil of Narayan Gao, which is in the Junnar Talika of Pune district. In sweetness, the tale is a veritable flow of Amrit. Bhimaji was well-to-do and hospitable to the visitors, especially in the matter of serving food. Never touched by sadness, his countenance always had a glow of happiness. But inexplicable are the ways of destiny, which brings us gains and losses for which we cannot account. Sufferings resulting from our karma come to a lot, and diseases afflict us that we do not seem to deserve. In the year of 1909, misfortune dogged Bhimaji when he had an attack of pulmonary consumption and began to run a temperature. Then it started fits of unbearable coughing. The fever began to rise sharply and wax stronger day by day, day after day. Bhimaji was dismayed. There would be froth at the mouth all the time, mouthfuls of brackish spittles of blood. The stomach would have a nauseating sensation, and the restless tossing of the body would not cease. The patient was bedridden, his body had become emaciated and began to shrivel up. Though remedies were tried to the utmost, he was greatly troubled in the mind. He did not relish any food or drink, nor was even gruel or other regimen tolerated. All this made him restless and quite lost. The suffering of the body was beyond all endurance. The propitiation of gods, exercising, everything was tied, exorcising, as in calling, uh, the people who, the demonologists, and taking the demons out of your body. Yeah. So even that was tried. The doctors, the Vaidyas, they had all given up all effort. Patil too had given up hopes of survival and had felt quite puzzled in his mind. He was distressed. His days seemed numbered. Day by day, the exhaustion grew. Many days passed in this manner. He propitiated the family deity, but to no avail. It did not restore him to good health. He now grew weary of consulting astrologers, exorcisers. Uh, some said, "What physical malady is this? Oh, what fate is this to bring on such suffering?" Human remedies all seemed futile. The doctors were tired. Hakims were summoned. Oh, the doctors were tried. Hakims were summoned. But in treating him, they all came to their wits' end. No one could do anything. All their efforts failed. Patil became weary and despondent, saying to himself, "Oh God, what have I done? Why has everything failed? What terrible sin could I have committed to deserve such suffering? And yet, how strange are God's ways! He is not remembered even for a moment by one who is enjoying happiness. Inscrutable is his Leela. When he himself so wishes, he sends a chain of calamities of various kinds, thereby making man remember him and cry out in anguish, "Help me, O Narayana!" And when God heard Patil's anguish cry for help, he was at once moved by his compassion. And Bhimaji suddenly thought that he could write a letter to Nana Chandorkar. Nana will surely do something that others will not be able to do. Such was his great confidence that Patil felt. And that was indeed a good omen for him. That was the beginning of the cure of his disease. Later, he wrote a detailed letter to Nana. To have remembered Nana Sahib at the moment was nothing but Saina's prompting. It was the cause of the removal of his disease. The ways of the saints are most wonderful. Even in the rotation of the wheel of fortune, there seems to be a divine plan. Hence, no one should imagine it to be otherwise and boast vainly. To all the good actions and bad, it is God who holds the strings. It is He who preserves and He who destroys. He alone is a doer. Patil wrote to Chandorkar, "I'm tired of taking medicines. I'm really fed up of this life itself. The world to me seems so cheerless and dreary. Doctors have given up hope, concluding that the disease is incurable. Vaidyas and Hakims too are at loss for a remedy. And as for me, my hopes are sunk to their lowest. And so I have to make only one last humble request. It is one strong desire of my heart to be able to meet you with the most certainty." On reading the letter, Chandorkar's heart was filled with sadness. For Bhimaji Patil he knew was a good man, and his heart was deeply touched with compassion. In reply to your letter, he wrote, "I suggest only one remedy. Hold fast to Sai Baba's feet. This is the only ultimate remedy, for He alone is our Father, our Mother. He is the only compassionate Mother to all, who will come running to our call for help. will pick us up with a mother's affection and will understand her child's need. When even a dreaded disease like leprosy is cured by his mere darshan, what of tuberculosis? Have not the slightest doubt. Go and catch Sai's feet tightly. Whatever anyone asks him for, he always gives it to him. This is his promise with a capital P, to which he is bound. Hence I say, hurry up and take Sai's darshan. What is the greatest amongst all fears but the fear of death? Go and clasp Sai's feet firmly, for he alone will make you fearless. So unbearable was Patil's agony, so precariously balanced his life, that he became very impatient, thinking, when will I meet Sainath? When will I achieve my purpose? Great was Patil's restlessness. Pack everything at once, he said. Prepare to leave early tomorrow. Let us be on our way to Shirdi quickly. Having made his firm resolve, Patil took leave of everybody and went and set out for Shirdi to have darshan of Sai Maharaj. Taking his relatives with him, Bhimaji started at once with a heart full of anxious anticipation as to how he would reach Shirdi as quickly as possible. Patil's cart came to the square near the mosque and thence to its front door. 4 people bore Bhimaji on their hands and brought him up. Nana Sahib was accompanying him, and Madhav Rao, because of whom it was easy for everyone to meet Baba, had already come there too. On seeing Patil, uh, Baba said, Shama, how many thieves are you going to burden me with? What is this right on your part? Is this right on your part? Bhimaji lowered his head at Sai's feet and said, Sainath, have mercy on me, this friendless destitute. Protect me, O Dinanath. Sainath was moved by pity on seeing Patil's suffering. In that moment, Patil felt assured in his mind that his suffering was allayed. On seeing Bhimaji's great distress, Sai Samvarth, the ocean of compassion, was deeply touched and said with a smile on his countenance, Rest assured, give up all anxiety. The thoughtful and reflective do not be mourned. The moment you put your foot in Shirdi, your suffering has ended. You may be up to your neck in the sea of obstacles. You may have sunk deep into the great pity of sorrow and suffering. But know that he who climbs the steps of this mosque will enjoy the greatest happiness. The fakir of this place is very kind. He will eradicate your disease and pain. He who has compassion for all will look after you very lovingly. Then, hence, you rest assured, stay in the house of Bhima Bai. Go now, and in a day or two you will get relief. Just as one who has no hope of survival suddenly, by a stroke of luck, gets a shower of nectar and instantly gets a new lease of life. Such was the satisfaction that Patil felt as he heard the words coming out from Sai's mouth. Patil experienced a deep satisfaction as that of one on his deathbed receiving a draught of nectar, or one parched with thirst, a drink of water. The mouthfuls of spittle of blood that rose to the mouth every 5 minutes subsided when Baba sat with him for 1 hour. Baba did not examine the patient, did not ask him about the causes that gave rise to the disease. His glances of grace alone was enough to destroy the very roots of the disease in an instant. Though is his enough is his glance of kindness. Even a withered log would sprout into leaf, and the flowers would bloom from it before it is spring. The trees would be heavy with luscious fruit. What is disease or health? Unless one merits or sin cease to be, or unless one works out one's karma, no other remedy will work. Only by working it out will the karma cease to be. This one is most certain, the birth after birth. Unless we work out our karma, no other means will liberate us. Yet, if one's extraordinary good fortune, if by one's extraordinary fortune one has a darshan of a saint, it is able to remove the affliction. The afflicted one will then bear the painful malady easily and without pain. Disease brings severe pain and suffering. The saint, with his compassionate glance, removes disease without causing any suffering. It is Baba's word that is the authority. That alone is a most infallible remedy. Malaria was once cured similarly when a black dog was fed on rice and curds. These short tales may be looked upon as the digression from the main story, but when heard in their gist, their appropriateness will be evident. Moreover, it is not Sai himself who brings them to my mind. I will narrate my own story. Sai has said, it is he who has reminded me of these stories at this juncture. A very devout tailor, Bala Ganpat by name, once came to the mosque and stood in front of Sai, entreating him with a piteous fate. What is a great sin that I have committed? Why does the malarial fever not leave me? Baba, numerous are the remedies that I have tried, but this fever does not leave my body. Oh, what shall I do now? I have tried herbal remedies, decoctions, everything. But at least you tell me a remedy whereby this fever will go. Baba's heart melted, and in reply, he suggested a novel method for malaria. Just listen to it. Feed a black dog, near the temple of the goddess Lakshmi with a mouthfuls full of rice and curd, and you will be cured instantly. With some trepidation, Bala then went home to look for food. Luckily, he saw some rice under a cover. Curd too was found nearby. Bala thought, it is a good idea that curd and rice are found. But will there be a black dog near the temple at the right time? Baseless was Bala's worry. For no sooner did he reach the place indicated than he saw a black dog approaching him, wagging his tail. Bala was simply delighted to find everything happening according to Baba's indications. He then fed the curd and rice to the dog and thereafter narrated to Baba everything that happened. In short, whatever one may say about this incident, the fact is that from that moment the malarial fever left Bala and he got relief. Similarly, Bapu Sahib Bhutti once had severe diarrhea and repeated bouts of vomiting due to a chill in the stomach. This cupboard was full of medicines of all sorts, but not one of them was effective. Bapu Sahib was frightened in his heart and began to worry. Repeated motions and bouts of vomiting left Bapu Sahib exhausted and weak. He had not the energy even to go for Baba's darshan, as was his daily practice. News reached Baba's ears. He sent for Bhutti and made him sit in front of himself. Mind you, from now on, you will not go for evacuation of the bowels. And remember, even the vomiting must cease. Facing him, he waved his forefinger, once again repeating the same words to him. In short, such was the awe produced by these words that in fright, and both the afflictions took to their heels at once. Bhutti, however, experienced great relief. And once more, too, Bhutti had suffered similarly from loose motions and vomiting. But when there had been an outbreak of cholera at Shirdi, his throat was parched with thirst. His stomach had a constant sick, queasy feeling. Near at hand was Dr. Pillai, who tried all remedies, then nothing worked. In the end, he went to Baba. Humbly, he related to Baba. And then Pillai asked Baba, should he be given coffee or is water preferable? Baba said to him, give him milk, almonds, pistachios, walnuts to eat. Give him taran to drink. This will quench his thirst and his suffering will cease instantly. The point is that when this taran was given to him to drink, his complaint disappeared altogether. At that words, eat walnuts, pistachios, or almonds should bring relief to a victim of cholera. The seat of fate was really Baba's words. There was no room for any doubts there. Once a Swami from Alandi came to Shirdi, wishing to have the darshan of Sai Samarth. He arrived at Baba's abode, that is the mosque. He was suffering from an affliction of the ear, which had brought on restlessness and loss of sleep. He had an operation performed, but it was not of slightest use. There were unbearable shooting pains and no remedy worked. So he decided to leave Shirdi, come to Baba for blessings. The Swami bowed at Sai's feet, received Udi Prasad, and then asked for blessings, praying that Baba's grace should always be with him. Madhavrao Deshpande entreated on his behalf to Baba to have mercy on his afflicted ear. Allah will make everything all right, Maharaj assured him. On receiving this blessing, Swami returned to Pune. After 8 days, a letter was received from him that the shooting pain had stopped immediately. Swelling, however, was there, and another small operation was recommended, for which purpose I came to Bombay once again. I went to the same doctor. I wondered if Baba found him in a strait, but as the doctor examined my ear, he could not locate the swelling. And so the doctor said, there is no need for the operation. The Swami was relieved of his great anxiety. Everybody was amazed at Baba's Leela. A similar story comes to mind in this context. I shall narrate that to the listeners and then I will end this chapter. Just 80 days before the work of paving the floor of the Sabha Mandap commenced, Mahajani suffered from a severe attack of cholera. He began to pass many loose motions. Then his innermost heart, his entire dependence was on Baba, and so he would not take any treatment or medicine, though he was wearied out by this illness completely. Mahajani knew what a great seer Baba was. Hence, he did not tell him of his great discomfort. He went on bearing the pain and suffering in full faith that Baba wishes it. He will on his own remove the affliction. His only strong desire all along was that even though he was prepared to undergo all suffering, there should not be a break in his daily puja and arti. And when the motions, so many of them so frequent, were beyond the limit, just in order, he did not miss his daily service of performing Baba's arti. What he would do was, he would keep aside a copper vessel filled with water in the mosque at the place where it would be easily accessible in the dark. Himself, he would sit near Baba, pressing his feet, and would be present for the arti without fail, as was his daily practice. If there was a gripping or pain in the stomach, the water vessel was always at hand. He would find an unfrequented spot, relieve himself, and return. And now, when Tatya asked for the permission to start paving the floor, Baba gave it to him. And listen what he said to him. We are now going to Lendi, but when we return from there at the moment, start the work of paving. Then later Baba came back and went and sat at his usual spot. Kaka also came at the right time and began to press his feet. Tongas arrived from Kopergaon, devotees from Mumbai, that is Bombay, reached there too. Laden with puja articles, the devotees climbed up and made obeisance to Baba. Along with all others came the patil from Andheri, bringing him flowers, consecrated rice, and other puja articles, sat down waiting for his turn. Suddenly, down in the large open court below, where the chariot used to be kept, exactly at the spot, fell the first stroke of the hoe. The work on the floor had begun. No sooner did no sooner did he hear the sound of Baba cried than Baba cried out loud in a strange voice, assuming at once the fierceness of Narsimha with wild glaring eyes. Who strikes his hoe here? I shall break his neck. Who strikes his hoe there? I shall break his neck. So seeing, he got up immediately, picked up his baton, striking terror into the hearts of all present. The worker dropped his hoe and ran for his life. Then all took to their heels. Kaka too was startled when suddenly Baba took hold of his hand. Where are you going? He said. Come, sit down. Meanwhile, Tatya and Lakshmi came. Baba hurled abuses freely at them to his heart's content. The abuses were showered even on those who stood outside the yard. Suddenly, Baba pulled up a bag of roasted peanuts which was lying there. The bag must have fallen from the hands of someone among those at the mosque who, stricken by panic, ran helter skelter when Baba was in a fit of rage. The nuts must have been measured in a full seer. The, in those days, they used to have a measuring map, like, and they used to say, okay, this is 1 seer, and this to give you. That's how it used to be. It used to not be weighed. So, taking them out by the fistfuls, he would rub them in his palm, clean them by, blowing off the skin of the peanuts. He would then make Mahajani eat the cleaned nuts, even as abusing continued on the side, rubbing the skins of the nut on the other. Eat them up, he kept urging as he placed the nuts on Mahajani's hand. A few he occasionally put in his own mouth. In this way, the entire bag was emptied. As the peanuts were finished, bring water, I'm thirsty, he said. Kaka filled up the spouted drinking vessel with water and brought it to him. He drank it from it and asked Kaka to drink. And as Kaka drank the water, he said to him, Go now, your motions have stopped. But where, oh, where have those Brahmins gone? Go and bring them here. Later the people came, the mosque became full as before. Once again the work of paving began. But Kaka was cured of his cholera. But oh, what a medicine for loose motions. The real medicine is the word of the saint. He who takes it as prasad needs no other medicine. A gentleman from Harada city was afflicted with colic and had been suffering for 14 years. He had tried all remedies to no avail. His name was Dattopad. News traveled to him by the word of mouth that in Shirdi there is a great saint called Sai, whose darshan alone removes all afflictions. On hearing such fame, he went to Shirdi and bowed his head at Sai Baba's feet, beseeching his mercy. Baba, full 14 years have passed. This colic has pursued me relentlessly. Enough, oh enough, I've reached the limit of my patience, nor do I have the strength to take any more suffering. Never have I betrayed or harmed anyone, nor have I shown disrespect to my mother and father. I did not remember my karma from a previous birth due to which I have to endure so much suffering. It is only the loving, compassionate glance of the saints, their blessings and prasad that remove all afflictions. Nothing more is then needed. And such was also Dattopant's experience. As Baba's hand rested on his head, he received vibhuti and blessings. His mind was relieved and comforted. Maharaj then made him stay for a few days. Gradually, the colic pain subsided completely. Such indeed are the Mahatmas. How can I describe their greatness, their power adequately? Well disposed towards all creatures, benevolence is their constant nature. Even as I sing these praises, I recollect other stories, one more wonderful other than the other. But now let us pick up the threads of the main narrative and continue Bhimaji's tale. And so Baba sent for the Udi, of which he gave a little to Bhimaji. Smearing a little on his forehead, he placed his hand of benediction on Bhimaji's head. Bhimaji was then commanded to return to his lodging. Patil took a few steps and walked up to the cart. He felt quite energetic. He went to the place suggested by Baba, that is Bhima Bai's house. Though the place was closed and narrow, Baba had suggested it. Therein lay its importance. Being recently leveled with clay, the floor was wet, but he obeyed Baba's command and made arrangements to stay there itself. Of course, a drier place would have been available in the village, for Bhimaji knew many people, but the place mention of which that came from Sai Baba's mouth could not be changed for any other. So he spread out 2 sacks in that place, over which he spread out his bedding. Putting his mind at rest, he lay on it. That same night, so it happened that Bhimaji had a dream, in which appeared a teacher from his childhood, who started beating him. Cane in hand, he began beating him hard, also almost breaking his back, so as to make him learn by heart some Prakrit verses. To his student, he caused great pain and trouble thereby. The listeners must be very curious to know what these verses were. Hence, I cite them before what I have heard in detail and word by word. She to whom stepping into any other house except her own is like stepping on a snake's head. The words from these mouths are as hard to obtain as wealth from a miser's hand. To whom her husband's company is the highest happiness, though there can be no wealth in the house, and who acts calmly with her husband's approval, only she is a true sati amongst men. But for what fault was this punishment? It was so difficult to understand, and yet the teacher would not let go of the cane. He was seized by a fit of obstinacy. Immediately after, he had another dream. It was still stranger than the first. Some gentleman came and sat on his chest and pressing it down heavily. Picking up a stone roller, he made grinding sound of on his, literally made a grinding stone off his chest. In his extreme agony itself, life itself seemed to leap out to his mouth, as if he was already on his way to heaven. The dream ended and he fell asleep, which brought him some comfort. The sun came up on the horizon and Patil woke up. He felt refreshed as never before. The feeling of being unwell had completely vanished altogether. Who remembered to check for the telltale signs of the grinding stone and the roller or of the cane? People regard these dreams as illusory, but sometimes our experience is to the contrary. In that same auspicious moment, the disease was destroyed and Patil's suffering came to an end. Patil was pleased in his heart and felt it to be his regenerative regeneration. He then slowly set out to have Baba's darshan. As he looked upon Baba's moon-like countenance, the ocean of all joy in Patil's heart surged higher and higher. His own face glowed with happiness, the eyes closed in sweet, pleasant drowsiness. The floodgates were opened to tears of love as he placed his forehead on Baba's feet. The ultimate outcome of the punishment of caning and pressing the chest till the heart seemed to burst was clearly a happy one. It is impossible such a lowly creature like me should ever be able to repay the kindness shown to me. Hence, I only lower my head on your feet. This is the only way which I can, in any measure, repay the debt. There is none other. Baba Sai, your wonderful ways are simply incomprehensible. Patil then stayed there for a month, singing Baba's praises, and returned home later with a deep sense of fulfillment, remembering Nana's kindness with gratitude, filled with devotion, faith, and a heartfelt happiness. The Patil, who was ever so grateful to Sai for his kindness, came to Shirdi frequently. And what does Sai want but the two hands and a head, steadfast faith, a single minded devotion? It is enough for him that the devotee feels sincere gratitude. When a person is in trouble, he promises puja to Satyanarayana and performs it with its complete ritual once he is free from trouble. Similarly, from then onwards, Patil began to observe the vow of Satya Sai on every Thursday with purifying bath and other observances laid down for it. People read the story of Satyanarayana on such an occasion. Instead, Patil would very lovingly read Sai Charitra from Das Kanu's Arvachin Bhakta Leelamrut. In the 45 chapters of that book, Das Ganu had narrated the lives of many devotees, and amongst these, the 3 chapters on Sainath form the Satya Sai Katha. Best amongst all the observances are the 3 chapters which Patil used to read, and as a result of it, he enjoyed boundless happiness and a peace of mind. Patil would invite all his relatives, brothers, and friends and would observe this Satya Sai Vrat regularly with a joyful heart. The Naivedya too was prepared, observing the same proportions of ingredients as for the Satyanarayana Naivedya, and the celebration would be the same except that it was Sai being propitiated. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. I know I have to look it up. Sorry. There it is Sri Vishnu when it is Satyanarayana Katha. Nothing else was wanting. Patil thus set the trend and it became a custom in the village. One after the other, people began observing Satya Sai Vrata. Such is the kindness of saints. When fortune smiles on the devotee, their mere darshan removes this worldly suffering. Nay, even death is made to turn back. Now, the next story will describe the anxiety of one for having children, and incidentally, the oneness between all saints will appear to us as a miracle. A wealthy resident of Nanded, belonging to the Parsi community, received Sai Baba's blessings and a son was born to him. Oneness between Mauli Sahib of Nanded, a saint, and Baba was shown. Full of joy, the Parsi went back to his place. The story is very touching. Listen to it with a calm mind, O listeners. You will then realize Sai's all pervasiveness as also his great affection. Hemant Pant surrenders to Sai absolutely and bows to the saints and to his listeners. To his narration in the next chapter, give a respectful ear. We'll be to all. Here ends the 13th chapter of Sri Sai Samirtha Satcharitra called The Cure of Bhimaji's Tuberculosis, as inspired by the saints and the virtuous and composed by his devotee Himmat Pant. Om Sai Ram. See you next Thursday. I hope you enjoyed it.